545. I'm reading an animal story today by Michael McCurgle. This one is called This Morning I Met a Whale. This morning I met a whale. It was just after 5 o'clock and I was down by the river. Sometimes when my alarm clock works and when I feel like it, I get up early because I like to go bird watching, because bird watching is my favourite hobby. I usually go just before first light. Mum doesn't mind, just so long as I don't wake her up, just so long as I'm back for breakfast. It's the best time. You get to hear the dawn chorus. You get to see the sunrise and the whole world waking up around you. That's when the birds come flying down to the river to feed, and I can watch them landing in the water. I love that. If you're already there when they come, they hardly notice you, and then you don't bother them. Hardly anyone else is down by the river at 5 o'clock. Sometimes no one at all, just the birds and me. The rest of London is asleep. Well, mostly anyway. From our flat in Battersea, it takes about 5 minutes to walk down to the river. The first bird I saw this morning was a heron. I love herons because they stand so still in the shallows. They're looking for fish waiting to strike. When they strike, they do it so fast it's like lightning. And when they catch something, they look so surprised and so pleased with themselves as if they've never done it before. When they will walk in slow motion. When they take off and fly, they look prehistoric, like pterodactyls almost. Herons are my best, but soon enough they all came, all the other birds, the moorhens and the coots, the crested grebes and the swans, the cormorants and the ducks. This morning I saw an egret too, perched on a buoy out in the river, and you don't see many of those. They're quite like herons, only much smaller and white, snow white. He was so beautiful, I couldn't take my eyes off him. I was watching him through my binoculars and he was looking right back at me. It was like he was asking me, "Hey you, what are you doing here? This is my river, don't you know?" Suddenly, without any warning, he lifted off. Then they all lifted off, all the birds on the shore, all the birds in the river. It was really strange. It was just as if I'd fired a gun or shouted or something, but I hadn't. I looked around. There wasn't a single bird left anywhere. They'd all disappeared. For a while, the river was completely still and empty and silent, like it was holding its breath almost, waiting for something that was about to happen. I was doing the same. Then I spotted something else, slicing slowly through the water towards me. It was a fin. Shark, I thought, shark! And a warm shiver of fear crept up my back. Then I saw the head and knew at once it couldn't be a shark. It was more like a dolphin, but it wasn't. It wasn't quite the right shape. It was too big for one and too long to be a dolphin. It was big enough to be a whale. A real whale? Now I knew what it was. With a face like that, I knew at once it had to be a bottlenose whale. It's the only whale that's got a face like a dolphin. I know quite a lot about whales because my uncle sent me a whale poster he'd got out of a newspaper and I've pinned it up in my bedroom over my bed ever since. So that's why I recognise about all the whales in the world: narwhals, belugas, sperm whales, pilot whales, minkies, bottlenose whales, the lot. To begin with, I just stood there and stared. Mrs. Ruskell's got her cup of coffee, of course. I thought I was still dreaming. I couldn't take it in. I couldn't believe my eyes. I mean, a whale in the Thames? A whale in Battersea? He was close to the shore now, in shallower water and still coming towards me. I could see almost all of him from his head to his tail. But after a bit, I could see he wasn't really swimming anymore. He was just lying there in the shallows, puffing and blowing a bit from time to time. He must be resting, I thought, tired out after a long journey perhaps. And then I noticed he was watching me, as hard as I was watching him, almost like he was trying to stare me out, except I could tell from the gentleness in his eye that he wasn't being unfriendly towards me. He was interested in me, that's all, as interested in me as I was in him. That's when I knew. Don't ask me how, I just knew that he wanted me to come closer to him. I climbed the wall and ran along the shore. The tide was already going out fast. I could see at once that he was in great danger. If he stayed where he was, he'd soon be stranded. I was walking slowly so as not to alarm him. Then I crouched down as close as I could get to him, the water lapping all around me. His great domed head was only just out of my reach. We were practically face to face, eye to eye. He had eyes that seemed to be able to look right into me. He was seeing everything I was thinking, it felt. I was sure he was expecting me to say something, so I did. "What are you doing here?" I asked him. "You're a bottlenose whale, aren't you?" You shouldn't be here at all. You don't belong in the Thames. On my whale poster it says you live up in the North Atlantic somewhere. So you should be up there, near Iceland, near Scotland maybe, but not down here. I've seen bottlenose whales on the telly too, on Planet Earth with David Attenborough, I think it was. There was lots of you all together, or maybe it was pilot whales, I can't remember. But anyway, you always go around in schools, don't you? In huge family groups, I know you do. So how come you're all alone? Where's the rest of you? But maybe you're not alone. Maybe some of your family came with you, and then you got a bit lost. Is that it? He kept staring back at me out of his big wide eye. I thought the best thing I could do was just to keep talking. I couldn't think what else to do. For a moment or two, I didn't know what else to say. And anyway, I suddenly felt a bit stupid talking to him. I mean, what if someone was watching me? Luckily, though, there was no one around. So instead, I looked upriver, back towards Battersea Bridge, to see if any of his family might have come with him. But everywhere the river was empty and glassy and still. There was nothing there, nothing that broke the surface anyway. He was alone. He'd come alone. And then, that's when it happened. The whale spoke. I'm telling you the truth, honest. The whale spoke to me. His voice was like an echoing whisper inside my head, like a talking thought. But it was him talking, it really was, I promise you. No, he said. My family's not with me. I'm all on my own. They came some of the way with me, and they're waiting for me back out at sea. And you're right, we usually stay close to our families. It's safer that way. But I had to do this bit alone. Grandfather said it would be best. Grandfather would have come himself, but he couldn't, so I've come instead of him. Everyone said it was far too dangerous, that there was no point, but it's too late anyway, that people won't listen, and they just won't learn no matter what. But Grandfather knew differently. He always said I should go, that time was running out, but there was still hope. I was young enough and strong enough to make the journey, he said. One of us had to come and tell you, so I came. There are some things that are so important that you just have to do them, whatever anyone says, however dangerous it might be. I believe that. And besides, I promised Grandfather before he died. I promised him I'd come and find you, and I always keep my promises. Do you keep your promises? I could just about manage a nod, but that was all. I tried, but I couldn't speak a word. I thought maybe I was going mad, seeing things that weren't there, hearing voices that weren't real. And suddenly that really terrified me. That was why I backed away from him. I was just about ready to run off when he spoke again. It's all right, he said. Don't be frightened. I want you to stay. I want you to listen to me. I've come a very long way to talk to you, and I haven't got long, you know. His tail thrashed suddenly, showering me with water, and that made us laugh. But then I could see he was serious. He was rolling from one side to the other, rocking himself violently. Now I saw what it was that he was struggling to do. He was trying to back himself out into deeper water, struggling to keep himself afloat. I wanted to help him, but I didn't know how. All I could do was stand there and watch from the shore. It took him a while before he was out into deeper water and able to swim free again. He was blowing hard. I could tell he'd given himself a terrible fright. He swam off into the middle of the river and then just disappeared completely under the water. I stood there for ages and ages, looking for him up and down the river. He could have gone anywhere. I was longing for him to surface, longing to see him again. But he did, longing to see him again. Worried that he'd never dare risk it again. But he did, though. When he came back towards me this time, he kept his distance. Only his head was showing now, and just occasionally his fin. I've got to watch it, he said. The tide is going out all the time. Grandfather warned me about it. They all warned me. Stay clear of the shore, they said. Once you're beached, you're as good as dead. We can breathe all right out of the water. That's the problem. But we need water. That's not the problem, but we need water to float. We can't survive long if we get stranded. We're big, you see, too heavy for our own good. We need water around us to survive. If we're not afloat, we soon crush ourselves to death, and I don't want that to happen, do I? Maybe I just got used to him speaking to me like this, I don't know. Or maybe I just wanted to hear more. Either way, I didn't feel scared anymore. I found myself walking back along the shore to be closer to him and crouching down again to talk to him. I had things I needed to ask him. But I still don't really understand, I said. You said you came to talk to me, didn't you? That means you didn't get lost at all. No, I didn't get lost, he told me. Whales don't get lost. Well, not very often. We tell each other where we are all the time, what's going on all around the world, what we see, we share. So each and every one of us has a kind of map of the oceans, all the mountains and valleys under the sea, all the rivers, all the creeks, the coast of every continent and every island, every rock. It's inside our heads, you see, in here. We grow up learning. That's why we don't get lost. He paused for a while, puffing hard through his blowhole. Talking was exhausting for him, I could see that. But we do get tired, he went on, and we get old too, and we get sick, just like people do. We've got a lot more in common